Misty?
Yeah.
Do you want me to take attendance?
Sure.
Okay. That is
Sure.
great. We're in third hour, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Am I dressing up as?
Yeah.
My normal witchy self.
Yeah. Do you remember that Miss Nelson is missing? Remember that little children's book Miss Nelson is missing? Miss Nelson is like the nicest teacher in the world, and her kids like take advantage of her, so she like goes missing for a couple days, and all the kids are like, "Where's Miss Nelson?" And this awful teacher came in.
Yes.
And so that when Miss Nelson came back, we were like, "Oh my gosh, we promise we'll never mistake again. I just love you." Miss D is gonna be Miss Nelson, and I'm gonna be the yucky evil teacher.
No.
And then one day you guys are gonna like really want her to come back. It's gonna be me.
No, they won't.
I mean, oh, so many kids in this class. All right, who are we missing?
Elise will be here shortly. Her teacher let me know.
Okay, so she's just late, but that's fine.
Desiree.
Everyone's here. We're missing Desiree. Is she here? She just comes late all the time.
Hey, who's this for you?
What about Kate? No Kate?
And Grace is that.
This Rose here. And Grace is absent. There's Desiree. And you're all here. And you're here. So we're missing not Elise, really. Desiree. One day. What? You're gonna come to class when I'm teaching on time.
I was.
So proud of you.
I was.
So Kate,
I was
Grace,
on time this week. Except for that.
I'm also not dressing up tomorrow. It's not really my thing. So that one's done. And then we have Kate. Katie K. Oh, that's it. Okay. So how are you guys? Good?
Yeah.
Everyone's excited for the day today? Shortened class periods because it's advisory today. Do you like advisory?
No.
What? I think it's good. It gives you like time to feel. I think it's fun. Okay. What day are we on today? Day 3, right? So we have an activity. We're gonna dig deeper into tone and theme. We're gonna read There Will Come Soft Rains. Who do you think's writing There Will Come Soft Rains? Bradbury, right? And what kind of stories does Bradbury typically write about?
Science fiction.
Science fiction, yep. So we're gonna read the story, we're gonna listen to the audio while we're reading the story, we're gonna annotate that story. Do you know what annotate is? What is annotate? I'm sorry, speaking of yes. Marking each section, taking notes, so you can go back and remember and be like, oh yeah, that was similar, for sure. And then it helps you later when you have to, what we're gonna do with the story, we're gonna be writing a summative. You know what we're writing on this? I think we have to write an essay on this, right, Misty?
Oh, they are.
They sure are. So it would be very smart of you to take notes while we're reading this today, annotate the heck out of it, hopefully you're ready to do your essay. And then lastly, I did not have time last time, but we're going to try to have time to come up with these comprehensive questions, 1 through 4. So you will need your textbooks out, and then we're going to start on page 111. There Will Come Soft Rains. We know that Ray Bradbury writes sci-fi.
Yes, and we're starting at
We're going to read a little bit about them. We're going to look at this picture here first.
whoa.
Does anyone not have their book and need a copy of the story?
Is mine.
2 of you? I have copies somewhere, right, Misty?
On the table.
Thank you. Gentlemen, the only thing that this does not have
He's 19 years old, babe. But then,
the books help you the paragraph numbers.
I don't know how.
This does not, so you have to look for them. Oh, okay. Okay. Alrighty, everyone have their books? Everyone's on page 111? Everyone's ready to go? Kylie, can you hit that backlight for me real quick? On page 111, we have this creepy little picture here. and we learned about telling details way, way back a few weeks ago. So what can you tell me about this picture here? What do you notice? What do you notice? Right through the windows, there's all this destruction, and you?
There's electronic mouses.
Yes, electronic mouses, but what is plural for mouse? Mice. Much better, thank you very much. What else do you notice? I gotcha, post-apocalyptic. I can barely say that word myself, but yes, it looks post-apocalyptic. See, I must know too. So super creepy. Something's going on here, we've got electronic mice. So Ray Bradbury's up to some stuff. Kylie, can you grab the lights again? Okay, so we learned a little bit about Ray Bradbury. I'm gonna tell you a little bit more. See this about the author here, if you guys wanna follow along. Ray Bradbury, born in 1920 and died in 2012. When I read that today, that surprised me. I thought he was like, died a long time ago. But no, just kind of recently. He's remembered mostly as a fantasy writer, although he also wrote horror, science fiction, and mysteries. He is best known for his novels Fahrenheit 451, The Martian Chronicles, and The Illustrated Man. He loved reading at an early age and became obsessed with science fiction when a guest in his parents' boarding house left behind some science fiction magazines. When Bradbury was 12 years old, a magician touched his head with an electrically charged sword and said, "Live forever." He did not. That one moment inspired him to start writing, and he wrote every day from that point on. Bradbury published more than 30 books, close to 600 short stories, and numerous poems, essays, and plays. Many of his works have been adapted into television shows or films. It's pretty cool. Wrote a lot. He reminds me of not because they wrote the same similar style of writing, but Stephen King once said, to become a good writer, you need to practice and write every day. And that's what he did, and I was a good writer. So it's King to do that. So today, you will analyze symbolism, imagery, and figurative language in a short story to understand the story's tone and theme. And where should I go? Mason, what is tone? It's the author, if I'm saying what is the tone of the story, it's the author's like it's like something, attitude. So it's the attitude or the feeling that the story makes you feel. And then we have determine the impact of an author's language choices. I read that already. Last one. Use literary elements such as imagery, sequencing, and telling details to write a narrative from a limited point of view. So we're not going to know every detail of the story, but we can infer a lot of things by looking at the figurative language. So while we're reading, we're going to focus on chronological order. Does anybody know what chronological order is? So if I'm looking at like an old school clock. It's 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock I eat lunch. 1 o'clock I go to the gym. 2 o'clock I have a snack. 3 o'clock I take a nap. What am I doing there? Am I talking out of order, or am I talking in order? And how it relates to time. So chronological order is looking at what happens in a sequencing of events as it relates to time. So 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, things like that. You're going to notice that in the story. And then we're going to really want to focus on the figurative language and how it helps us to infer things in the story, how it pushes the theme and the tone of the story along, all that good stuff. You guys ready? Does everyone have a pencil, highlighter, all the things to start taking notes? And then we'll annotate together, which would be great. And I'm going to put the story up here too. One day I'm going to get this right. That's going to be amazing. Okay, so make sure you're focusing on, when we're listening to the story, the chronological order, so the sequencing of events and what happens when, and the figurative language, so similes, metaphors, imagery, personification. Desiree, what is personification? Do you remember?
When you give something to inanimate objects, like emotions.
Like emotions or human characteristics. That's exactly right, that's right. And imagery. somebody tell me what imagery is. What do you got?
Senses, all your senses.
That's a great answer. You say all the senses to like create a picture in your mind of the story. And how many senses do we have? 5.
That's my phone.
Can I grab it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna start this story and make sure you're paying attention to all that stuff. Personification, imagery, etc. Hello. No, it's different. Oh, it's right. Yep, hold on 1 second.
In the living room, the voice clock sang. Tick-tock, 7 o'clock. Time to get up. Time to get up. 7 o'clock. As if it were afraid that nobody would. The morning house lay empty. The clock ticked on, repeating and repeating its sounds into the emptiness. 7-9, breakfast time. 7-9. In the kitchen, the breakfast stove gave a hissing sigh and ejected from its warm interior 8 pieces of perfectly brown toast, 8 eggs, sunny side up, 16 slices of bacon, 2 coffees, and 2 cool glasses of milk. Today is August 4th, 2026, said a second voice from the kitchen ceiling. In the city of Allendale, California. It repeated the date 3 times for memory's sake. Today is Mr. Featherstone's birthday. Today is the anniversary of Toledo's marriage. Insurance is payable, as are the water, gas, and light bills. Somewhere in the walls, relays clicked. Memory tapes glided under electric eyes. 8-1, tick-tock. 8-1 o'clock, off to school, off to work, run, run, 8-1. But no doors slammed. No carpets took the soft tread of rubber heels. It was raining outside. The weather box on the front door sang quietly. Rain, rain, go away. Rubber raincoats for today. And the rain tapped on the empty house, echoing. Outside, the garage chimed and lifted its door to reveal the waiting car. After a long wait, the door swung down again. At 8:30, the eggs were shriveled and the toast was like stone. An aluminum wedge scraped them into the sink, where hot water whirled them down a metal throat, which digested and flushed them away to the distant sea. Dirty dishes were dropped into a hot washer, and it emerged twinkling dry. 9:15, sang the clock. Time to clean. Out of warrens in the wall, tiny robot mice started. The robots would crawl with small cleaning animals, all rubber and metal. They thudded against chairs, whirling their mustached runners, eating the rug nap, sucking gently at hidden dust. Then, like mysterious invaders, they popped into their burrows. Their pink electric eyes faded. The house was clean. 10 o'clock. The sun came up from behind the rain. The house stood alone in a city of rubble and ashes. This was the one house left standing. At night, the ruined city gave off a radioactive glow which could be seen for miles. 10:15. The garden sprinklers whirled up in golden founts, filling the soft morning air with scatterings of brightness. The water pelted window panes, running down the charred west side where the house had been burned evenly, free of its white paint. The entire west face of the house was black, save for 5 places. Here, the silhouette in paint of a man mowing a lawn. Here, as in a photograph, a woman bent to pick flowers. Still farther over, their images burned on wood in one titanic instant, a small boy, hands flung into the air. Higher up, the image of a thrown ball, and opposite him, a girl, hands raised to catch a ball which never came down. The 5 spots of paint, the man, the woman, the children, the ball, remained. The rest was a thin charcoal layer.
Okay, so let's pause there for a second and recap a little bit. What kind of house is this? Really? Is it a house that's like electronic and like, so what do we call those houses? A smart house, right? So we read about smart houses before. What was the other Bradbury story that referenced smart houses? The bells. Very nice. So he loves a good smart house. And then this paragraph here, read this paragraph 3 in your books. They're right here for you two gentlemen. Today is August 4th, 2026. My birthday, actually. I'm gonna write that. Tells us, what does it tell us? Definitely gives us the date, my birthday. It tells us something in the future. Not too far off into the future, right? What's the year this story was? 2026, which is 5 years away from now. 3 years away from now, right? And then, do you guys remember when this story was written? 1950. So a lot of this Bradbury had to just come up with in his mind, and he was just creating these situations. But do we kind of have smart houses now? A little bit. We've got Alexa, we've got the plugs, we can just tell Alexa to turn your lights on, all that cool stuff, Google Home. So stuff that he was imagining in 1950, not as crazy, but it's still coming together a little bit today. So it does talk about the date, the place. When we talk about, what's that? Or if we're talking about the date, the place, the time, the setting, right? So here we have Bradbury gives us the setting, so we know when the story took place. And then down here, they're about my doubted. What paragraph does it talk about the silhouette? Do you guys see that?
11.
11? What is a silhouette?
Shadow.
Like a shadow, right? Think Peter Pan when they're cutting out those things, and it's like a thing, whatever. So outside in that picture that we saw pure destruction. The house is the last thing standing. And then outside along the west side of the house, you see the silhouette of what? Yep, 5 people, the man, the woman, the child with ball, just like stuck there on the walls, but not the actual people, just the outline or the shadow of it. And everything else is destroyed. So it was like time, frozen time. And then it says something about nuclear, right? Which, oh, there it is. A radioactive glow. You see that? So, who was the one? You, Michael? You said apocalyptic earlier, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like you were right here. Not almost, you were right. It was like an apocalyptic event, some sort of nuclear event that caused this radioactive frozen in time moment. So you inferred correctly from that picture alone. How cool is that?
The gentle sprinkler rain filled the garden with falling light. Until this day, how well the house had kept its peace. How carefully it had inquired, who goes there? What's the password? And getting no answer from lonely foxes and whining cats, it had shut up its windows and drawn shades in an old maidenly preoccupation with self-protection, which bordered on a mechanical paranoia. It quivered at each sound the house gave. If a sparrow brushed the window, the shade snapped up. The bird, startled, flew off. No, not even a bird must touch the house. The house was an altar with 10,000 attendants, big, small, servicing, attending, in choirs. But the gods had gone away, and the ritual of the religion continued senselessly, uselessly. 12 noon. A dog whined, shivering on the front porch. The front door recognized the dog voice and opened. The dog, once huge and fleshy, but now gone to bone and covered with sores, moved in and through the house tracking mud. Behind it whirred angry mice, angry at having to pick up mud, angry at inconvenience. For not a leaf fragment blew under the door, but when the wall panels flipped open and the copper-scrap rats flashed swiftly out. The offending dust, hair, or paper seized in miniature steel jaws was raced back to the burrows. There, down tubes which fed into the cellar, it was dropped into the sighing vent of an incinerator which sat like evil Baal in a dark corner. The dog ran upstairs, hysterically yelping to each door, at last realizing, as the house realized, that only silence was here. It sniffed the air and scratched the kitchen door. Behind the door, the stove was making pancakes, which filled the house with a rich baked odor and the scent of maple syrup. The dog frothed at the mouth, lying at the door, sniffing, its eyes turned to fire. It ran wildly in circles, biting at its tail, spun in a frenzy, and died.
Sad.
It lay in the parlor for an hour. 2 o'clock, sang a voice. Delicately sensing decay at last, the regiments of mice hummed out as softly as blown gray leaves in an electrical wind. 2:15. The dog was gone. In the cellar, the incinerator glowed suddenly, and a whirl of sparks leaped up the chimney. 2:35. Bridge tables sprouted from patio walls. Playing cards fluttered onto pads in a shower of pips. Martinis manifested on an open bench with egg salad sandwiches. Music played. The tables were silent and the cards untouched. At 4 o'clock, the tables folded like great butterflies back through the paneled walls. 4:30, the nursery walls glowed. Animals took shape. Yellow giraffes, blue lions, pink antelopes, lilac panthers cavorting in crystal substance. The walls were glass. They looked out upon color and fantasy. Hidden films clocked through well-oiled sprockets, and the walls lived. The nursery floor was woven to resemble a crisp cereal meadow. Over this ran aluminum roaches and iron crickets, and in the hot, still air, butterflies of delicate red tissue wavered among the sharp aroma of animal spores. It was the sound like a great matted yellow hive of bees within a dark bellows, the lazy bumble of a purring lion, and there was the patter of okapi feet and the murmur of fresh jungle rain, like other hoofs falling upon the summer-starched grass. Now the walls dissolved into distances of parched heat, mile on mile, and warm, endless sky. The animals drew away into thorn breaks and water holes. It was the children's hour.
What do you guys recognize about that last paragraph there? What do we have here in this house? A nursery, right. And what other story has the nursery? Rebel. So we have the same kind of nursery here. He likes nurseries and smart houses. And it's talking about the nursery. Can you picture it? Can you see it? Can you hear it? And so it's using some of our senses. Charlie, if we're using our senses to get a picture of a story, what's that word called? Imagery, right? So can you picture this nursery here? Yeah. I can like see it visually, which is pretty cool. He's really good at that kind of stuff.
5 o'clock. The bath filled with clear hot water. 6, 7, 8 o'clock. The dinner dishes manipulated like magic tricks, and in the study, a click. In the metal stand, opposite the hearth where a fire now blazed up warmly, a cigar popped out, half an inch of soft gray ash on it, smoking, waiting. 9 o'clock. The beds warmed their hidden circuits, for nights were cool here. 9:05. A voice spoke from the study ceiling. Mrs. McClellan, which poem would you like this evening? The house was silent. The voice said at last, since you express no preference, I shall select a poem at random. Quiet music rose to back the voice. Sarah Teasdale, as I recall, your favorite. There will come soft rains and the smell of the ground, and swallows circling with their shimmering sound, and frogs in the pools singing at night, wild plum trees in tremulous white. Robins will wear their feathery fire, whistling their wings on a low fence wire, and not one will know of the war, not one will care at last when it is done. Not one would mind, neither bird nor tree, if mankind perished utterly. And spring herself, when she woke at dawn, would scarcely know that we were gone. The fire burned on the stone hearth, and the cigar fell away into a mound of quiet ash on its tray. The empty chairs faced each other between the silent walls, and the music played. At 10 o'clock, the house began to die. The wind blew. A fallen tree bough crashed through the kitchen window. Cleaning solvent bottled shattered over the stove. The room was ablaze in an instant. Fire! Screamed a voice. The house lights flashed. Water pumped shot water from the ceilings, but the solvent spread on linoleum, licking, eating, under the kitchen door, while the voices took it up in chorus. Fire! 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 The house tried to save itself. Doors sprang tightly shut, but the windows were broken by the heat and the wind blew and sucked upon the fire. The house gave ground as the fire in 10 billion angry sparks moved with flaming ease from room to room and then up the stairs, while scurrying water rats swooped from the walls, pistoled their water and ran for more, and the wall sprays let down showers of mechanical rain. But too late. Somewhere, sighing, a pump shrugged to a stop. The quenching rain ceased. The reserve water supply, which had filled baths and washed dishes for many quiet days, was gone. The fire crackled up the stairs, fed upon Picassos and Matisses in the upper halls, like delicacies, baking off the oily flesh, tenderly crisping the canvases into black shavings. Now the fire lay in beds, stood in windows, changed the colors of drapes, and then reinforcements. From attic trap doors, blind robot faces peered down with faucet mouths gushing green chemical. The fire backed off, even as an elephant must at the sight of a dead snake. Now there were 20 snakes, whipping over the floor, killing the fire with a clear, cold venom of green froth. But the fire was clever. It had sent flame outside the house, up through the attic to the pumps there. An explosion. The attic brain, which directed the pumps, was shattered into bronze shrapnel on the beams. The fire rushed back into every closet and flooded the clothes hung there. The house shuddered, broke bone on bone, its bared skeleton cringing from the heat, its wire, its nerves revealed, as if a surgeon had torn the skin off to let the red veins and capillaries quiver in the scalded air. Help! Help! Fire! Run! Run! Heat snapped mirrors like the first brittle winter ice, and the voices wailed, Fire! Fire! Run! Run! Like a tragic nursery rhyme. A dozen voices high, low, like children dying in a forest, alone, alone. And the voices fading as the wires popped their sheathings like hot chestnuts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 voices died. In the nursery, the jungle burned. Blue lions roared, purple giraffes bounded off. The panthers ran in circles, changing color, and 10 million animals running before the fire vanished off toward a distant steaming river. 10 more voices died. In the last instant, under the fire avalanche, other choruses, oblivious, could be heard announcing the time, playing music, cutting the lawn by remote control mower, or setting an umbrella frantically out and in the slamming and opening front door. 1,000 things happening like a clock shop, when each clock strikes the hour insanely before or after the other. A scene of maniac confusion, yet unity. Singing, screaming, a few last cleaning mice darting bravely out to carry the hard ashes away. And one voice, with sublime disregard for the situation, reading poetry aloud in a fiery study, until all the film spools burned, until all the wires withered and the circuits cracked. The fire burst the house and let it slam flat down, popping out skirts of spark and smoke. In the kitchen, an instant before the rain of fire and timber, the stove could be seen making breakfasts at a psychopathic rate. 10 dozen eggs, 6 loaves of toast, 20 dozen bacon strips, which, eaten by fire, started the stove working again, hysterically hissing. The crash, the attic smashing into kitchen and parlor, the parlor into cellar, cellar into sub-cellar, deep freeze, armchair, film tape, circuits, beds, and all like skeletons thrown in a cluttered mound deep under. Smoke and silence. A great quantity of smoke. Dawn showed faintly in the east. Among the ruins, one wall stood alone. Within the wall, the last voice said over and over, again and again, even as the sun rose to shine upon the heat, rubble, and steam. Today is August 5th, 2026. Today is August 5th, 2026. Today is August 5th, 2026.
Ooh. Did you guys like it? A little creepy? A little sad, right? Poor little doggy dies.
I'm sadder when the house died.
You're sad the house died? It is kind of sad, right? The last, like, almost living thing, even though it's not really living, goes down in dust. So, right at the end of that story, we have a couple questions here. Who do you think the characters are in this story of non-living things?
The house.
The house? Who said that? What's your name?
Dalton.
Ooh, Dalton, nice job. The house. Exactly, that's one of the main characters. Do you have any other characters in here? What do you got, Charlie? What did you say? The mice, that could be a character, add some color to the story.
The fire.
The fire, exactly, so nature is like a huge character in this story. And then we have the other question. What does that say? What details about the setting stand out to you? What's happening in this story? We know the date, right? What's the date? August 4th. What's important about August 4th? My birthday. Really dumb. So we know that it's in the future. What's happening outside? Is it sunny and bright outside?
No, it's raining.
It's raining, right? So if it's raining outside, would we expect that house to burn down? Doesn't water kind of stop fire?
It's thunderstorm.
Well, I would expect that house to not burn down because it's raining. But, like I tell my children, it doesn't matter in a world of technology and life or how smart you think you are, nature always wins. Here, that's exactly what happens. So, it's the exact opposite of what we think is going to happen, happens. Does anybody remember that figurative language, what that is? We got Charlie. Irony, yes. Good job, Charlie. Okay, now I have this little handy sheet. We talked about chronological order. I told you guys what that word means. Bradbury here uses a lot of time, right? And what does the time in this story do for us? It's telling us how quickly things happen. It gives us a sequencing of events going in chronological order. And then I also talked to you earlier about inferencing. What is an inference again? An educated guess. So Bradbury gives us these sentences. Kylie, you want to get the lights one more time? Hopefully that adjusts and you guys can see it. So we have these sentences from the story here and what happens at these certain times, but it doesn't actually tell us why it's doing something at a certain time. So we have to infer why that's happening. So for example, at 7 o'clock, a clock announces the time, the stove fixes breakfast automatically. So we can infer, guess, that it seems as though the house has been abandoned by people, but it's still operating as if people were alive. Because the house doesn't know if the people are dead or not. It's kind of just going through the motions, getting things done. At 8:01, the garage door opens, but no one comes out. What do you think the people would be doing at that time? Leaving, going to school, going to work. They gotta get on for the day. And then the robot mice come out, and what do? They clean up the house after breakfast. Michael, this one's for you. At 10 o'clock, the house is the only one in the city. The rest of the city is in ashes and it glows as if it were from radiation. That's that word again. Images of people are silhouettes on the wall in the house. Now, Michael, what was that event that you called it? Apocalyptic, right? So some sort of nuclear event house thing happened and the house is the only thing that's standing. Moving on. At 12 o'clock, what do we see? What are we introduced to at this point? A little doggy. It's a big dog, but it's all bones and it's hungry and it doesn't know what's going on. Do you think that dog lives at that house? Yes. Probably, right? We can infer that. The dog walks in and he searches for his people. And then what happens to the sad little dog? And dies. And what does the house do after the dog dies?
Burns
It does what?
him. Burns him.
It burns them, right? Do you know the word, Dalton?
Uh,
It's like an incinerator. Because it takes the things and it burns them into ashes just to get rid of it. So the house notices the dog's dead, takes it, burns it, dog's gone. 2 o'clock. Bridge tables pop out from the walls. Bridge tables, cards. Who normally plays bridge? Kids or adults? Adults. And in my mind, it's like older people. I don't even know how to play bridge. And then the nursery walls come alive. So what's the nursery for? Kids. So we can infer here that what's happening. Is everybody home at this point? Is the family home? The adults are playing some cards. The kids are where are the kids at? In the nursery, right? And then 5 o'clock hits. The bath fills with water, dinner and dishes are washed, and the house prepares for bedtime. So what can we infer here? What's happening at 5 o'clock? Probably at like 7 o'clock at your house. They're getting ready for bed. And then at 10 o'clock, what paragraph is that? Do you see that? I think it's 49 or something. It's a 1-line paragraph or 1-line sentence. Yeah, 49. At 10 o'clock, the house begins to die. The house catches fire, robots try to put out the fire, and the house burns down. So the height of a story. The part that's most interesting, we have all this build up when we get to the top. If we're looking at a plot map, do you know what that height of the story is? The climax of the story, right? And is that the most interesting part of a story, Reed? Right? That's like the build up and you're waiting for something to happen and boom, the house is starting to burn down. It's awful. So why do you think that the Bradbury put this story into chronological order? If I'm thinking of like a ticking time bomb almost, you're looking at a clock and someone has 5 minutes to defuse the time. You see it going down, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes. Suspense. Yes, it builds suspense. Is that what you're going to say too? Mm-hmm. So Ray Bradbury uses this chronological ordering and the sequencing of events to build that suspense. And then we get to the height of that suspense when? What time? 10 o'clock when that house dies. Sad little house. Kylie, can you get the lights one more time? Thank you, my dear. Okay, so you guys have your pencils. We don't have much time, but we're going to annotate a little bit. We're going to try to rush through this a little bit because I think you guys get out at 23. Okay, so we talked about setting in paragraph number 3. And the paragraph above that, in the kitchen, the breakfast stove gave a hissing sigh. Do stoves typically give a hissing sigh? If we're giving human characteristics, Desiree, to an inanimate object, personification, that's exactly right. So I would write that down as personification, and you can picture what's happening in the morning. I can smell the pancakes and the eggs. What would that be, Reed?
What, sorry?
I can like picture imagery. Thank you so much, Reed. So I'd write that down for paragraph 2. And then we have, let's go to paragraph 5. The weather box on the front door sang quietly. Do weather boxes really sing, or what would we call that, Charlie? Personification. Mm-hmm. And then we can go down to number 7, paragraph 7. At 8:30, the eggs were shriveled and the toast was like stone. That like word gives us a clue. Simile. Wow, you guys are getting good. Getting good at your figurative language. So if you know that's a simile, in paragraph 9, can somebody find a simile sentence for me?
Like mysterious invaders.
Yes, like mysterious invaders. I would highlight that and then write that over to the left there. That's a simile because we see the word like. And then, Michael, what's happening in paragraph 10? What clue does that radioactive glow give us? Yes, an apocalyptic event, like a nuclear event. Something happened outside, and for some reason that house stood standing, which is great. Okay. Let's see here. Oh wait, let me go back real quick. That last page, or that last sentence down there. The entire west face of the house was black, save for 5 places. Now, save is not a word we would see typically here, but if I can picture in my head the west side of the house being completely black, except for those silhouettes, if we were saying the whole house was black, save those 5 images, what do you think save could mean there? Like accept, exactly right. So by reading the context clues around that sentence, we might not know what save means, but by looking at everything around it, we can infer that he means accept. Okay, number 14, paragraph 14. The house had kept its peace. How carefully it had inquired or questioned, who goes there? What's the password? What do you think that's an example of? Can the house ask questions? So Charlie, if it gives human characteristics to an inanimate object. Personification, that's right, Charlie. So write that down. Number 18. We see the dog. The dog once huge and fleshy, but now gone to bone, covered with sores, trapped in mud. The mice are angry. We can picture this event. So read, what was that word again? If we can picture something in our head? Imagery. Imagery, right? So I'd write that down. 19. Can somebody find me a simile?
Like people,
What was that?
like the evil, all in the corner.
Did you say there down the tube sped into the cellar? It was dropped in slang gun on a scenario which sat like evil. Okay. Yep, she's right. That very last sentence there. So that's a simile. Number 21. The dog, it sniffed the air, it scratched the doors. We gotta keep rolling. We can hear, we can smell the pancakes. There's odor, there's maple syrup. We can picture it. What is that? Imagery. I like it. Now if you flip the page. Oh, we're gonna have to pick up tomorrow. Right? You got out at 20. Oh, no, we got a few minutes. Let's keep moving. Woohoo. Okay. Let's see. So we talked about 29 and 34. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Are people home at this point? Or should be home? Right? Because we have the bridge tables out. And who typically plays bridge? Adults. So we can picture some adult time going on down there. And then down here at 4:30, whose time is it now?
Kids.
The kids, right? They're playing in the nursery. And in 34, what is paragraph 34 just filled with all the pictures and sites? Imagery. I write that down too. 36. The dinner dish is manipulated like magic tricks and in the study of a click. What is that an example of? A simile. And why is that a simile? Because there's a like in it, right? What's the other word that has? As. Like or as for a simile. Very nice. Let's go over to this page here. And do you guys remember the paragraph where the climax is? 49. And what happens at 49? The house begins to die. So it was able to live and function as normal, even though there's no people there. But at 10 o'clock, stuff hits the fan. The house is now catching on fire. Does the rain help it stop? Nope. Does not, because the fire took over. Okay. Number 53. 10 billion angry sparks move with flame, easing da 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 da. We can picture the flame taking over the house. If we can picture something, what is that an example of? Imagery. Well done. And then, let's see. But too late. Some were sighing. A pump shrugged to a stop. A pump shrugged. Can a pump shrug in real life? No. So what would that be if we give it a human characteristic? Personification? Yep, I would write that down too. Here's 158. You guys see that down there? Yeah. The fire backed off, as even an elephant must at the sight of a dead snake. So, it's a simile. Why is that a simile? Because it has as, right? That's the first time we've seen as instead of like, so I'm glad that you were able to still catch that. You're a smart little class. Man. All right, let's flip it over to that last page. So what do we have here in 62? The house shuttered, oak on bones, skeletons, prickling wires, nerves revealed as if a surgeon had torn off the skin to let the red lines and capillaries quiver in the scalded air. Personification. What else do we got, Desiree? A simile. Why? It says as. So do you guys see that sentence that Desiree is talking about? It's nerves revealed as a surgeon. So we have the personification because it's wires, they don't really have nerves. And then we have as if a surgeon, so those wires are being compared to a surgeon. And then can you picture it too? Yeah. So what does that read? Imagery. Well done. So now it seems like 62 on, the house is on overload. And it implodes. What does implode mean? It explodes, right? And it explodes from top to bottom. So from the very top to the bottom. The rain couldn't save it, nothing could save it, the house just starts to explode. It's a terrible thing. And then lastly down here, 69. Dawn showed faintly in the east. What can we infer about 69? If we're looking at the chronological order of things. That it's what? Nighttime or?
No, that it's daytime, because it says the date the next day.
Because it says the date the next time, so we can look ahead at the date the next day. And I remember this poem my mom used to say to me, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So if we're looking at the dawn showed faintly in the east, we can infer that it's morning time the next day. Everything's quiet. Did the house survive? No, just one quiet little voice. Thank you guys. Do you think you have a handle on personification, imagery, similes, all that good stuff? We're going to go through questions 1 through 4 tomorrow and then move on to some other things, which is really cool. And I think that's it. Do you guys like the story? Thumbs up if you liked it. Yeah, you liked it. Raylan, did you like it?